With all the hype around AI making product design redundant, the truth is simple. That is not going to happen. If you study those making this assumption, you realize that many of them are not product designers. A few of them have tried designing in Figma, but most of them just go to the vibe coding platform like Cursor, Lovable, Bolt, give a prompt and come up with a product, right? With a mock-up, let's say the first version, the proof of concept. And then because they could do that over a simple prompt, they assume the design process is dead. But for those who are in the weeds, who have put their hands in product design and design product from scratch, taking idea through the whole conceptualization process and coming up with a functional prototype, you know that it is far from the truth. So for us to really explain this process, especially for upcoming designers, we need to really go back to the fundamental principles of design and see how they apply in the current trend of design in 2026. And then we can now, using our own personal judgment, evaluate if product design is dead or not. So let's start with the first approach, user-centered design. So for context, I'm going to be giving practical example of how my startup DevaSign applied this fundamental principle to how we created our proof of concept and how we are currently building our MVP and hopefully to scale to a set of users on our wait list. For a user-centered approach, you will likely want to understand the needs the user are currently facing, the pain point, what are the pain points, and the only way to find out the needs and the pain point is through research, as simple as that. You can do your research through sending out survey or sending out code emails, and maybe in your email you request for a 15-minute discovery call, which we did, and we got a couple of responses, had a couple of discovery call, and from there we're able to outline the top problem that our core demographic users are facing. And now, after highlighting the pain point, you want to define the problem in a wholesome perspective, right? And here's how we define our problem: that the open source maintainers find it difficult to review open pull requests and then pay bounties. All this together slows down bug fixes and feature development. This is how we define our problem. And the next principle here to focus in product design is your iterative refinement. And what does this simply mean? It means that if you're providing a solution for a problem, you provide it one step at a time. It only makes sense if you go one step at a time. That way you can easily validate the solution you're offering. If you try to build everything, it's going to take a lot of time and you will not have enough time to validate if your solution is correct or not. And so for our phase one, we launch our proof of concept with the AI code review for new pull requests. So whenever a contributor make a pull request, you can easily we summarize it and let you know if it's worth your time or not, right? And then the phase two was to automate bounty payments. So we make sure that whenever you successfully merge a contributor pull request, the developer gets paid immediately. Well, the business goal number one is to reduce the risk of false positive, to reduce the risk of making our user code base get infected with AI prompt injection. So to stop that from happening, we have to look at other technical constraints based on our team size and look for the easier way around it. This is what we came up with. And then after aligning the user and business need, the next thing you want to look at is systemic thinking. Basically, how does the individual features and the product fit into the broader product ecosystem? And for our own use case, we discovered that some large open source project wouldn't want to have contributors that are not verified. Just like, for example, when you're hiring someone on your team, you want to know that you're not hiring a bad actor, you're not hiring someone that is under the OFAC sanction list, right? So by adding KYC for developers, we make it easier for this open source project to be sure that they're not working with sanctioned individuals, rather they're working with contributors that have been verified. So this is how we apply system thinking to our product. Another principle here to factor in is accessibility and inclusion. Basically, you're designing for different users, right? Even though you have your ideal customer profile, you know that there are different people based on location, based on language that likely want to use your product. For our own case, we made sure that we added alt text for images, such that if images are not loading, we have text that make the user understand what this particular image is trying to communicate. We also make sure that we use sharp contrast in text and colors, hierarchy in text, color contrast, to make sure that even someone that's colorblind can easily identify what link is clickable, what button should be clicked, what action to take, and the others. We are also working on having multiple language support in the future, but that's not what we are currently building in our current sprint. And lastly, as part of the fundamental principle is simplicity, because no matter the solution you are offering, if it's not simple and easy to understand, the purpose is defeated. So we made sure that, number one, we try as much as possible to reduce the cognitive load and making it easy for the users to use our platform. And one easy way to do it is to make sure that for each screen, the user can only take one core action. You don't want to overload them with taking 4 or 5 different actions for a particular screen. At some point when they come there, they are confused on the next line of action to take. So now, with all these fundamental AI principles of product design, they are part of it that AI makes simple, and the other part that we really need human creativity. So let's quickly look at the part that AI handles effectively. For a start, we look at that in rapid prototyping and iterations. Now, this is where vibe coding platform comes in handy, because as a designer, there are times whereby you are trying to create a product and then your mind is just blank, cannot come up with something within a short time frame. This is where vibe coding platform comes in, whereby you give it your idea and it comes up with a prototype. This prototype guides you. It gives you a frame of thought where you can start from and upgrade. I also have a video on this where you can create your first design, your design on any vibe coding platform, particularly with Stitch, and then take that design to Figma and update. With Stitch, with Lovable, with both, you can get that done in as little as 2-3 minutes. And the next part that AI really comes in handy is to help you set up design system and your component library. If you're using Figma Pro, it comes in very handy here. So you can easily set up your design system without having to build it from scratch, because for any product design that's experienced, we know that setting up design system takes a lot of time. Another area where AI really comes in handy is product adoption, which most time you work, not just you as a designer, you work with a developer in your team to help you set this up. We have platforms like StartSage, UXCam, Mixpanel, Microsoft Clarity, and others. This helps you track how a feature you launch is being used in production. That way you can know if it's really solving a problem or not. It's one of the ways you can validate your solution hypothesis. Another way is to just ask the user, set up a meeting, ask them about it, and they give you their feedback directly. Another way that AI really comes in handy in product design is accessibility checks. Now, imagine you've designed your product, you've launched it, or maybe your website, but then you really want to know if users can easily access this. So one way to know is to use the Wave or Page Speed Insight. So there are many other platforms. So I most times use Page Speed. So for example, you put in your website and then you click Analyze. And once you click Analyze, it runs the analysis and gives you insight as to how your website is running. And if it's maybe a mobile app, you likely have to use Sparks, right? So I'm going to link it in the description. You can use Stacks, for accessibility checks. Another thing that AI does for you effectively is to create design specs, right, and documentation. You can use Storybook and Supernova for that, link in the description. And lastly would be to do routine visual task, right? So let's say you want to resize assets, you want to generate variation, you want to maintain consistency, but this really comes in handy during production. Let's say you've designed using Figma and you're trying to vibe code it using Cursor or Google Anti-Gravity. Instead of going straight into the design to make the update right from your vibe coding platform, you can prompt it to make those improvements for you without having to go back to design to Figma to make those designs. So these are some of the areas that AI handles effectively. And now the AI have done this part, but what are those areas that you as a human, you as a designer, this is where you own your craft and prove that yes, you really know what you're doing? We're going to look at this in 5 core areas. The first is the emotional cues. For instance, you've designed your app and then you really want to understand how the user uses this. So for instance, you set up a live session whereby you're recording the user using your platform. Even from the way they look at it, the confusion on their face, you can tell that, okay, the user is really confused and they're not really getting what you're trying to do. So things like this allows you to understand that even if you give a screen recording to the AI, they may not fully understand the emotion that the user is facing at that particular moment, right? Another thing is that as a designer, when you're working in a team, you have several stakeholders you're working with. You're the product owner, you have the engineers. So managing the politics and explaining the design rationale, this is something that AI cannot do. This is something as a designer you have to do. In my former workplace, when I create a design, my CEO will ask me, why did you do it this way? Now I have to think and answer. And in fact, that singular question allows me to, before I make any design, I always think through it very well so that I can give good answers as to why I chose this particular design over using an alternative way of implementing the feature, right? Then the next thing is also in identifying potential dark patterns. For example, if you design the subscription, how users can upgrade from the free plan to the paid plan, most times you want to make it so seamless, right? But by making the user flow seamless, you remove some critical part of the design which prevent the user from taking certain actions. Now in production, this friction you remove can cause that pattern and make the user feel that, oh, you are limiting them from moving down a particular payment tier from a tier 3 to tier 1. So stuff like that can end up creating dark patterns that AI may not be able to understand, but you as an individual can understand this and empathize with the user. So that's one way that as human, your creativity needs to come into play to study the app, see how user interact with it, and remove those roadblocks that can give you bad PR in the eyes of the user. And lastly would be to handle edge cases, right? Maybe you design something, and as a designer, you want the user to be able to take certain actions in under 2 minutes, but then it's taking them 7 minutes, 6 minutes. You as a designer can now look into this and see, okay, what is causing this delay, and then step in there to make these changes. Now, if you give the screen recording to AI to analyze this video, they may not be able to pinpoint the exact limitation. In fact, they will not be able to pinpoint it, because as humans, you can understand human action, you can understand human frustration, and because you can understand this, you can easily empathize with the users, identify edge cases, and see where you can improve the design based on emotional intelligence and just basic moral reasoning to see, okay, how can I make this easier? How can I remove some user flow that makes it annoying for the user? So when you look at this in the broad scheme of things, you as a designer, you look at what you can do better, and then look at what AI can help you do better, and combine these together with the fundamental principles of product design and end up creating something useful that the user can enjoy and always come back for more in the solution you are offering. So can you let me know if this helps, and you can leave your question in the comment section, which I'll be glad to answer and also make subsequent videos to address them. Thank you.